At exactly 137 hours local time on the 28th of March in the pitch-black Persian Gulf, the nuclear-powered attack submarine USS Indiana, a Block V Virginia-class hunter-killer running in ultra-quiet mode at 200 feet, received a single encrypted three-word burst from U.S. Fifth Fleet. Headquarters in Bahrain. Execute Iron Passage. Those three words activated the most technically demanding maritime operation the United States military had attempted in a generation. Because 22 nautical miles to the north, at the narrowest choke point on Earth, 21 miles of water through which 20 million barrels of crude oil flow every single day, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy had just done something no hostile power had dared attempt since Operation Praying Mantis in 1988. They had physically closed an international waterway, not with a legal declaration, not with a diplomatic maneuver, with blood and iron, with Noor and Khaleej Far's anti-ship missile batteries hardened into cliff faces along the Musandam Peninsula, and with a coastal defense network so dense that American pilots briefed on it called it the Fortress Wall. 38 hours earlier, a convoy of 6 VLCC supertankers carrying 14.2 million barrels of Saudi crude had been turned back at gunpoint. IRGC PACAP-class fast attack craft armed with C-14 anti-ship missiles surrounded the formation at 800 meters, fire control radars screaming active target locks onto the hull of every civilian captain in the group. In the chaos that followed an Iranian ballistic missile strike on King Abdulaziz Air Base in Saudi Arabia, where 15 American service members lay wounded in a field hospital, the global energy market had ceased to function rationally. Brent crude breached $187 a barrel, exceeding the 2008 record of $147. Dow futures collapsed 11% in a single overnight session. And at the State Department podium in Washington, Marco Rubio looked into the cameras and delivered 5 words that carried the weight of a declaration of war. This is not going to continue. At 2,315 hours the previous evening, the National Command Authority authorized Operation Iron Passage. Phase 1 was executing now. At 140 hours, USS Indiana broke from her thermal gradient layer at 150 feet. Her AN/BYG-1 submarine combat control system had been locked and loaded for 11 hours straight. From her Virginia payload module, 4 additional 87-inch diameter launch tubes installed in the newest block to achieve operational status, she initiated the most precisely timed underwater-to-surface strike sequence in the history of submarine warfare. But first, the Decoy. From Tube 7, an AN/AQS-20C acoustic decoy deployed at 140-22, projecting a synthetic false propulsion signature specifically engineered to saturate the passive sonar arrays aboard 4 Ghadir-class IRGC midget submarines quietly positioned across the northern edge of the shipping lane 3 days prior. Those 4 submarines never detected what came next. From tubes 1 through 4, 4 Tomahawk Block V maritime strike variants left their launch cells at 2-second staggered intervals, traveling fully submerged for 4.2 seconds before breaching the surface and igniting their Williams F107WR400 2 turbofan engines. Their targets: 4 Noor anti-ship missile battery complexes hardened into the limestone cliff faces of the Musandam Peninsula, coordinates refined over 72 hours using RQ-180 Wraith UAV synthetic aperture. Radar passes flown inside simulated commercial air corridors to mask their operational signature from Iranian reconnaissance satellites. The IRGC coastal radar network at Qassab never registered the submarine launch. By the time their operators spotted the inbound contacts, the missiles were already in terminal phase, skimming at 98 feet above the Gulf surface at 880 kilometers per hour. AN/DSQ-61 terminal seekers hard-locked on aim points. 3 battery complexes ceased to exist in the next 47 seconds. The 4th strike scored only a partial hit. Battery Complex Delta, carved 40 meters into solid granite with 11 meters of reinforced concrete overhead, survived the kinetic impact. It was built to survive it. That was the trap. 151 hours. The second instrument of iron passage entered Iranian airspace, and not a single radar system on Earth detected it. From Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, a single B-21 Raider strategic bomber under the call sign Phantom 7 had departed 110 minutes earlier, climbing to 52,000 feet before going completely dark on all active emitters. This was among the first operational combat deployments of the B-21 Raider in the history of the United States Air Force. With a radar cross-section estimated below 0.001 square meters, less radar reflective than a steel ball bearing suspended in open sky, Phantom 7 crossed Iranian territorial airspace above Qeshm Island at Mach 0.93, triggering zero threat indicators inside the entire Bandar Abbas integrated air defense sector. Her target was Covcom Site Kilo. The IRGC Navy's Underground Command and Fire Coordination Hub, buried 28 meters beneath the Bandar Abbas Coastal Highway Interchange, a facility that housed the centralized missile assignment and targeting architecture for every surviving Hormuz coastal battery across 145 kilometers of Iranian shoreline. The weapon selection required no debate. 2 GBU 57A-B massive ordnance penetrators. At 30,000 pounds apiece, these remain the largest non-nuclear air-delivered weapons in the United States arsenal, purpose-engineered to penetrate 200 feet of reinforced concrete before detonating. Phantom 7's weapons bay opened for exactly 3.1 seconds. Both MOPs separated cleanly. The Raider was already executing its post-strike egress northward before either weapon impacted. At 158 hours, the Bandar Abbas Coastal Highway Interchange ceased to exist as geography. The RC-135V Rivet joint orbiting at 41,000 feet over Omani airspace registered both underground detonations simultaneously, a combined seismic signature equivalent to a 3.8 magnitude earthquake. Covcom Site Kilo went off the air permanently at 158.47. Every Iranian battery commander along the Hormuz coastline lost their centralized command nerve center in one instant. They were now 22 isolated launch sites operating without a brain, and every one of them knew it. 204 hours. The Strait was half blind and still lethal. Battery Complex Delta had survived the opening strike, and its 4 Khaleej Fars anti-ship ballistic missiles were now being elevated to their programmed launch azimuths. The Khaleej Fars is not a cruise missile. It is a ballistic weapon derived from the Fate 110 family, optimized specifically for maritime terminal engagement, near vertical launch, 120,000-foot apogee, Mach 3.5 terminal descent with an EO IR optical seeker that acquires moving ship targets in the final 15 kilometers of flight, entirely passively, no radar emissions, no detectable RF signature. Against a supercarrier, a single hit is a catastrophic mission kill. Against a supertanker carrying 2.3 million barrels of crude, it is an environmental and economic disaster measured in decades. KH-13 satellite imagery captured at 200 gave National Geospatial Intelligence Agency analysts exactly 4 minutes to confirm the launch telemetry and push a fire authorization. They used 3 minutes and 42 seconds. At 204 hours, 4 FA-18F Super Hornets from Carrier Air Wing 8 aboard USS Harry S. Truman, operating under MCON Alpha 200 nautical miles southwest of the Strait, received the full targeting package via encrypted Link 16 data burst and immediately went to full military power. They carried AGM-84H SLAM ER standoff missiles loaded specifically for this mission profile. Their terminal imaging seekers capable of homing on launch event thermal bloom at 40 nautical miles. Simultaneously, 2 EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft activated their AN-ALQ-99F tactical jamming pods at maximum output, projecting a coherent wall of RF noise across every X-band and S-band frequency Battery Complex Delta's fire control system could use. Delta's operators shifted frequency. The Growlers followed them across the full spectrum without latency, burning every band the moment it opened. Then Iran played its fallback. Battery Complex Delta had been purpose-built as a counter-Growler redundant platform. Its backup targeting array was a domestically produced electro-optical and infrared sensor suite, optically guided, zero radio frequency emissions, completely invisible to any jamming system in the American electronic warfare inventory. The Growlers had nothing to target. Delta was acquiring the Convoy optically, and nothing in the sky could stop it. At 207 hours and 14 seconds, Battery Complex Delta fired. 44 seconds. That is how long the world had. The Khaleej FARS accelerated vertically through 38,000 feet on its programmed ballistic arc, inertial navigation carrying it toward apogee with a 650-kilogram armor-piercing warhead on board. Simultaneously, the USS Harry S, Truman's AN, SPY 6V1 air and missile defense radar, the most powerful naval radar array ever deployed on a surface warship, capable of tracking a baseball-sized object at 1,000 miles, had achieved full tracking solution on the Khaleej FARS from the moment of ignition. At 207:31, exactly 17 seconds after launch, the Truman's Baseline 10 AEGIS combat system committed and fired a rapid salvo ripple of two SM-6 dual-eye Block I interceptors. Both missiles clawed upward at Mach 3.5 on converging intercept vectors, their seekers in continuous communication with the Aegis track file. At 208:09, the first SM-6 achieved direct kinetic intercept at 41,800 feet above the Persian Gulf. The warhead never activated. The second was commanded to self-destruct at 208:14 as a precautionary measure. The Khaleej FARS had been erased. But the Slam-ER salvo from the Super Hornets was already 70 seconds out from Battery Complex Delta, their terminal imaging seekers locked on the launch thermal signature, using Iran's own attack as the precision aim point correction for the counterstrike. At 210:03, Battery Complex Delta produced a secondary detonation visible to maritime traffic 80 nautical miles from the Hormuz approach. The last operational anti-ship ballistic missile battery along the Iranian Hormuz coastline was gone. 217 hours. USS Indiana transmitted a single 4-character authentication burst to NAVCENT headquarters in Bahrain. Iron passage clear. She immediately dove back to 200 feet. Two MH-60R Seahawk anti-surface warfare helicopters from the USS Cole swept the convoy flanks with AN APS 153 multimode radars, hunting for any IRGC fast attack craft that had not yet received the message. Two FA-18E Super Hornets maintained combat air patrol at 22,000 feet directly overhead, and 180 feet beneath the keel of the lead supertanker Aframax Genesis, the USS Indiana paced her in absolute silence. AN BQQ-10 sonar array mapping every submerged contact within 15 nautical miles. Torpedo tubes flooded, open, and ready, waiting for a provocation that never came. At 349 hours on the 28th of March, the bow of Aframax Genesis crossed the Iran-declared exclusion boundary at the northern throat of the Strait of Hormuz. For the first time in 41 hours, an American-aligned vessel transited the strait under armed escort. Iran did not fire a single weapon. The Strait of Hormuz was open. Here is the calculation Tehran is running tonight. 4 hardened coastal fortresses with decades of construction and investment behind them disappeared within 47 seconds of an underwater launch. Their entire sensor network failed to detect. Their centralized command hub, the most protected facility in their Hormuz defense architecture, was destroyed by a manned aircraft that transited their national airspace undetected, flown by a stealth platform that appears on no Iranian radar frequency catalog. Their most advanced anti-ship ballistic missile was intercepted in the terminal phase by a naval combat system that achieved firing solution before the Iranian weapon reached apogee. And the submarine responsible for the opening strike remains unlocated. Iran is not being shown a defeat tonight. It is being shown the gap, the technical systems and sensor gap between what the United States military can execute and what Iran can counter. Iran still retains over 1,200 Shahed 136 drones at dispersed Bandar Abbas sites. It still holds Fateh 110 batteries in hardened underground positions across 3 provinces. The coastline can be rearmed. But the equation that changed tonight is this. Every piece of military hardware positioned within targeting range of the Strait of Hormuz now carries an expiration date measured in hours, not decades. Operation Iron Passage did not end the war. It did not disarm Iran. It sent the only message that carries weight in strategic deterrence, a demonstrated, unanswerable capability executed at the time and place of America's choosing, with 0 warning and 0 survivors among the targeted systems. The Strait of Hormuz flows again tonight. 20 million barrels will move through those 21 miles by dawn. But with Trump's April 6 deadline for kinetic strikes on Iranian energy infrastructure now less than 192 hours away, Tehran faces a decision with no clean exits. Subscribe now and turn on notifications, because in this war, the next 72 hours will determine whether what happened tonight was the final act of the Hormuz crisis or the opening move of something the world has never seen before.